Morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rick Johnson. I'm the Oklahoma Department of Transportation's Director of Capital Programs. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2020 Oklahoma Transportation Research Day. This ever-growing event is co-sponsored by the Oklahoma Department of Transportation and the Southern Plains Transportation Center since 2004, and this is our first annual inaugural online event. The event is also being supported by the Accelerated Bridge Construction Center at UTC at Florida International University. We have a number of opening remarks to be provided today. Our first speaker will be Mr. Tim Gatz, who was appointed the Secretary of Transportation by Governor Stitt in early 2019 and currently serves as the Oklahoma Department of Transportation Executive Director as well as the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority's Executive Director. Secretary Gatz.
Thank you, Rick. I would tell you that the department is proud to be a co-sponsor of the 2020 Transportation Research Day, and we really appreciate working with Dr. Zaman and everything that he does in the research community. I'm excited to be part of the welcoming this morning with Dean Klier and Dr. Wang. We look forward to a really fantastic day, even in the face of some unique challenges with a virtual meeting. We'd much rather be doing this in person this morning, but with things the way they are, this is still going to be a great meeting. We're excited about it. You've got a tremendous day ahead of you. We're going to cover everything from pavements to pollinators. So thank you for your participation. Look forward to a great day. And Rick, I'll kick it back over to you. Thanks for everybody. And thanks to the research community for everything that you do for transportation to make our system perform better, to bring innovation to the forefront, and most importantly, to enhance the safety of the traveling public. So thanks to everybody for all you do. Rick?
Thank you, Secretary Gatz. Our next speaker is Dr. John Klier, who's the Dean of Gallaudet College of Engineering at the University of Oklahoma. He was appointed Dean in July of 2020, and prior to joining OU, he served as the professor and head of the Department of Chemical Engineering at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Before serving on the faculty at UMass Amherst in 2015, Klier worked for more than 25 years in the private sector with Dow Chemical Company. Klier is a member of several professional organizations, including the National Academy of Engineering, National Academy of Inventors. His research activities at UMass Amherst involve high-performance, environmental-friendly coatings, new strain stiffening materials, renewable and recyclable plastics, next-generation materials for optical applications, and new polymer colloids for targeted cancer therapy. At Dow Chemical Company, he led collaborations with companies from startups to major multinational manufacturers. Dean Klier.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks to everybody for joining. It really looks like a fantastic event. You've been a great partner in this. We tremendously appreciate the agency's engagement with SPTC in support of the research and workforce development activities. This is an excellent platform for faculty and students to share their research and scholarships with all of the participants. It's my understanding that the participation level has actually grown with time, this year having the highest registration even in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. It's also an excellent platform for our students, both undergraduate and graduate, to display their work and compete for poster awards, which are going to result in cash awards and honorable mentions. With over 60 students attending, it's a great venue for workforce development, for really highlighting students' work in front of a broad audience. And workforce development continues to be a very important part of the mission. Our college, Gallaudet College of Engineering, strongly supports multidisciplinary research of the type that you'll be hearing about today, and is excited about continuing the prospects of collaborating with the group that's represented.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. And for opening remark, Dr. Kelvin Wang, the Regents Professor and Dawson Chair in Engineering at the Oklahoma State University. He received his PhD at Arizona State University in 1992. His research interests focus on automated technologies for pavement data systems for design and management. In particular, automated cracking survey has been a main thrust of his research in the past 15 years, including developing 3D laser-based imaging sensors, algorithms, and computer implementations of database management and image processing of transportation assets, hardware integration and geographical positioning of data. His early work includes optimization and Markovian process for pavement management. In recent years, a primary work conducted by his team includes database support for MEPDG and Darwin ME, pavement design systems that will become the next generation of pavement design procedure. Wang recently started working in developing technologies to establish geographical, true 3D virtual pavement surface at 1 millimeter resolution that can be used for a variety of analysis on pavements, including distress and profiling survey and surface characters for safety. Dr. Wang.
Thank you, Rick. It's an honor to be presenting on behalf of Dean Tikelski. I'm going to share my screen here. I have a couple slides, but I will make sure that I would not exceed the 5 minutes allocation here. Again, appreciate it for the time, and Director Gatz and also Dean Klier, and also Mr. Rick Johnson for giving me this opportunity. Dean Tikelski has another obligation, so he asked me to speak on behalf of him. I have a topic on implementation through research, transportation research. And I just have 1 or 2 slides, but again, Rick had a very wonderful introduction to me, and I really appreciate it. My work is in transportation infrastructure survey, particularly on pavements, and we started on bridges recently as well. Oklahoma has a long history of transportation research and is highly respected within the nation and internationally. For instance, we have 2 UTCs. One was a national UTC funded about 15 years ago. We call it OKTC at OSU. And now we have the SPTC at OU. And both universities also had a long history of collaboration and to support ODOT programs. The second one, actually, I would put it first. We actually had a long-term sponsored research funded by ODOT, primarily through the SPR program and other funding sources. Both universities has benefited from the program in funding, and ODOT has benefited through implementing the research results through the decades. We actually have programs at both universities in transportation infrastructure related work, and it's highly respected. We have multiple faculty members working at both universities continuously on a yearly basis, and we have results, many papers, dozens of papers published around transportation infrastructure, transportation pavements, geotech, bridges, and other structures. One thing I would like to emphasize is what we're going to do in the next 5–10 years. I would highly encourage the attendants to look at new materials in transportation infrastructure. Both OU and OSU have multiple faculties working in this area, and we actually lead the nation and the world actually in certain aspects of the research. The second category would be how to exploit the advancements of computing hardware and software platforms, and then use AI to solve real problems in transportation. Here's an example how we actually leveraged the GPU platform at the workstation level and develop neural net-based networks to actually finding cracks and also other distresses. So that's the end of my presentation. I appreciate the opportunity and hope everybody has a good one-day research day today remotely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang, and all the other presenters this morning. We appreciate it very much. A few housekeeping notes I'd like to touch base for all of our attendees today. Most of the Zoom features are going to be turned off, but we highly encourage you to use the Q&A feature inside of Zoom with questions, and we'll be able to read and answer them as our presenters are available and present. So questions will be primarily held at the end of each session, except for in our keynote lectures, we will have question and answers after those lectures. In regards to PDHs, we will be pulling a list of attendees based on the login and log off time to issue those PDHs. So we highly encourage you to be logged on. And if you're not logged on in a group setting, in order to get your PDHs, you'll need to log on individually. Also a registration, if you haven't registered with us today, you can do so by looking at the registration link found in our program flyer, and you need to do that in order to get your PDHs. So, our posters and demonstration videos today, we have given time today to view these, but we do not have time enough to view all of them. So the links are presented on pages 9 and 11 of the program. And if you have a question about a poster or demonstration video, the Q&A feature will be identified as such. So the videos themselves do not have numbers. And the video and websites in today's entire event will be available on the website, SPT's website, for over a month. Like we said earlier, over 330 registrants have attended today, representing state, federal, local, and tribal, academic, and industry, as well as consulting partners. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first keynote speaker. Dr. Kelly Regal joined the Federal Highway Administration's Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center in January of 2020 as the new Associate Administrator for Research, Development, and Technology, becoming the first woman to lead the center to its 70-year history. Prior to her appointment at FHWA, she served as the Associate Administrator of Research and Information Technology at the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Regal joined FMCSA in 2009 and has worked in the transportation industry her entire career. She has more than 30 years of research, engineering, and information technology leadership and management experience in the private sector and in the federal government. Regal holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from Seton Hall University in South Orange, New Jersey, a master's degree in aeronautical science from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and a PhD in transportation engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Dr. Regal, I welcome you today.
Well, thank you, Rick, for that introduction. It's my pleasure to be here at the Oklahoma Transportation Research Day. And I'd like to say thank you, Secretary Gatz, for your strong partnership with between Oklahoma DOT and Federal Highways. We certainly value that partnership, and really a lot of things that we work on in a research area can't get into practice unless it is people like you and our state partners. And I'd also like to thank the research community for helping us with a lot of the research projects and being the innovators that you are. I'm really pleased to be here. This is my second virtual conference, and so I hope the first one went really well, and so I hope this one goes just as well as the first one. I'm going to share my screen now, so bear with me for the short pause. I have a presentation today. Okay. So hopefully you can all see that. It should be coming up. And I'll page through there. So I'm going to be talking about some of our latest programs here at Federal Highways, in particular the research that we're doing at Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center. And that'll give you somewhat of a flavor for our focus areas and some of our challenge areas and things that we're working on to overcome some of those challenges. I think there's a little bit of delay or pause between pages there, right? So our R&D focus is multifaceted. Mainly, it's about improving safety. Safety is our #1 priority. We're also focused on enhancing the transportation infrastructure, reducing congestion, and providing data and analysis to really support any of the transportation decision making. I'm coming to you today from the Turner Fairbank Highway facility here in McLean, Virginia. If you have not heard of it or been here, we are a federally owned, federally operated facility. We have about 95 federal staff and about 200 contractors supporting us. We host national research fellows, visiting researchers, support contract chemists, physicists, scientists as well. And our main areas, research areas, are focused on safety, operations, and infrastructure. We have about 15 different individual laboratories here amongst the campus. The campus consists of multiple buildings on about a 35-acre area. And we have about $70 million per year alone that we're research activities that we're working on just here at Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center. So that should give you an idea of who we are. Normally I invite people to come visit the campus anytime they're here in the area, but under COVID conditions, we are not actually having tours or allowing visitors. But hopefully that'll change sometime in the very near future. So let me talk about some of our research programs and our success stories. And I know one of them is an area that you all are concerned with, and that's automated vehicles and cooperative vehicles. So our KARMA program, some of you have already maybe heard of it. This is where we're looking at cooperative driving automation to really support the integration of these automated vehicles onto the roadways. So cooperative driving automation, CDA, allows for greater situational awareness and also better decision-making just amongst the automated driving systems on individual vehicles here. It is a cross-modal research program. Not only are we developing it, testing it, we also have partners in our sister agencies, including Federal Transit, the Maritime Administration, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Thus you see the trucks at the bottom here, the pictures there. And so we're also looking at, or focused on the potential role of the infrastructure owners and operators. And we're looking for R&D partners at the state and local levels to assess the CDA capabilities and the benefits of CDA. KARMA is an open source platform, and we invite folks to look at that open source platform, help us develop algorithms in cooperative driving automation. And we realize that in order to do that, not everyone has the resources to purchase vehicles with the platform on them. So one of our initiatives was to look at the 1/10 racing platform used in University of Robotics. And there you see on the lower left, one of those little robotic cars. That car will cost about $3,000 as opposed to a fully equipped, regular car that you see on the right, which would be about $300,000. And so we've used this robot car to equip it with the KARMA platform so that college researchers across the nation have a cost-effective way to engage in cooperative driving automation research. So just wanted to let you know that what we're doing there and the availability of that. Another interesting statistic about this is the open source. It's available on GitHub, and we have large amount of clones where that has made the Department of Transportation one of the top 10 government organizations with an open source platform, and certainly for federal highways, the #1 within the Department of Transportation in terms of clones and hits on the GitHub for the Karma platform. So I'm going to move away from automated vehicles and cooperative vehicles, and certainly I think there's some availability at the end where I can answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to move over into our FOIL, or Federal Outdoor Impact Laboratory. And the next slide shows pretty much the types of things that we do in our FOIL laboratory. So we partner with National Park Service, our federal lands, and we look at how, crashes and barriers can hold up to using certain types of materials. So this was a test that was completed in July 28th. And we crashed the car into a stone-faced wall here. All that equipment is developed on our property here. And we were looking at pretty much the performance, the safety performance of the wall itself, because if you've been in the Virginia area here, especially traveling up George Washington Parkway, where we have one of these stone-faced walls, it's aesthetically pleasing. But not only do we need to understand or have aesthetically pleasing barriers, but how will they hold up in particular situations? So these are the types of things that we also do here on site at Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center. I'm going to move along to ultra high performance concrete, UHPC. You'll be hearing a lot about UHPC throughout the day. I understand there's several presentations in technical session 1 coming up. And our focus is learning more about how we can use UHPC in different applications. UHPC currently is a part of the Everyday Counts Phase 6 program, looking at particular areas in maintenance and repair, and how that could potentially be useful and save a lot of money. So, there's 250 plus bridges in the United States that include UHPC for some component connection or repair. And we understand that it can be used in situations that normally conventional concrete or prepared mortars, and in some cases structural steel, and be the replacement for that. So we're always looking for active partners who might be interested in using UHPC. And we have the tools and the knowledge and expertise to help you work through any application you may be considering with UHPC. At the top, the picture here you see is an overlay using UHPC, and at the bottom is in our structures lab here at Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center, simulating some traffic loading on UHPC there. The next topic is modular mini roundabouts. The federal government has a small business innovation research program, SBIR program, where we participate in there. And so we offer up particular issues to the small business community, and they come back with an idea, and they'll go through a concept, feasibility study phase to prototyping, and then potentially once successful to commercialization. So this is an example of that, our modular mini roundabout, where it's a low cost, effective solution for a traffic situation there. And this particular one, I believe, is in Annandale, Virginia. And it's proven to be very successful there. We're building a couple more, one in San Diego, and also the Department of Defense is looking at this. And I have to say, we've probably already picked up on maybe my Jersey accent here. We're in New Jersey. We are very familiar with circles and roundabouts. And my advice always is that don't don't make eye contact, and the oldest and the biggest car goes first in the roundabout. That's just the general rules there. I asked my team, I said, okay, you know, what in particularly are we partner with Oklahoma? Give me, you know, a list of things, you know, where have our successful partnerships been? So here's a representative list of, you know, what we're doing with Oklahoma. And like I said, I certainly appreciate Secretary Gatz and Oklahoma Department of Transportation, our Federal Highways Division office, as well as all the research community out there in Oklahoma. You know, again, here's some examples. I won't go through each one individually, you know, but Oklahoma has been a very good participant in our long-term pavement program, where you've had at one time 73 active sections at its peak, and also including bridge information in the long-term bridge performance program. There's over 600,000 bridges throughout the United States, and just 23,000 alone in Oklahoma. And all that data about each one of the bridges can be found on the website as a part of that program. I believe the next slide probably has a couple more projects there, successful partnerships. And, you know, one of them mentions Tyler Lay of OSU as a principal investigator, who you'll be hearing from later. And I'm definitely interested in hearing about reducing cracking in bridge decks with baby aspirin techniques. So, you know, this is just an example of, you know, how researchers are a part of our projects and programs, and we share the information on, you know, any of our findings and recommendations. So that just is a example of some of the things that we're focused on Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center, and hopefully gives you an idea of where our focus is. You know, safety is also always our #1 goal, and we're always looking at infrastructure and how to enhance our infrastructure and how to reduce congestion. That it concludes my presentation, and again, thank you for the opportunity for participating with you all today. And I'll remain available for questions during the Q&A period. Turn it back over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Dr. Regal, very much. We appreciate that. And like you said, if you would provide any comments or questions in the Q&A section, we'll be happy to address those towards the end of our keynote lecture time. Please type those in, and I will be happy to read them aloud and get them answered for you. So thanks again, once again, Dr. Regal. Our next presentation will be from Miss Karen Philbrick, who has led the Mineta Transportation Institute at the San Jose State University as Executive Director since 2014, after 5 years as MTI Research Director. Prior to joining MTI, Philbrick shaped the field of transportation in a variety of roles, including Assistant Director of the National Center for Intermodal Transportation at the University of Denver. She's been appointed 3 times by the U.S. Secretary of Transportation to sit on the U.S. DOT Transit Advisory Committee for Safety. And since 2013, she has been elected to serve the Council of University Transportation Centers in several roles, including President in 2018-19. Philbrick has also has the privilege of serving as the President of the Research and Education Division of the American Road and Transportation Builders Association, where she also sits on the ARTBA Board of Directors and Executive Committee. Philbrick is part of the Transportation Research Board Committee on APO 80, Transit Safety and Security, and AR10 Intercity Passenger Rail, where she also serves as the Research Subcommittee Lead. Ms. Philbrick, turn it over to you. Thank you.
Why, thank you so much. And just a quick sound check. Can everybody hear me okay?
Sounds great.
Perfect, perfect. Well, before I begin my formal comments, I'd like to just take a moment to thank Dr. Musharraf Zaman for the kind invitation to participate with all of you today. It's always a pleasure to be with him and his team. And certainly I applaud the way you all have pivoted and have found a way to deliver this critically important event under these conditions. So thank you for the opportunity. And it's just past 6:30 a.m. when I logged in here at California time. So if I have to have a little coffee along the way, please forgive that. And like many of you, I am working from home, and I'm also distance learning a small child. So I will ask for your indulgence in advance if you hear any shouts of joy or my dog snoring or any other disruptors. That is just part of our new normal here. So as mentioned, I have the pleasure of being the executive director for the Mineta Transportation Institute. We are a university transportation center that's focused on improving the mobility of people and goods. We do this through surface transportation research, technology transfer, education, and workforce development. And in addition to leading a nationwide consortium funded through the US Department of Transportation, we also were competitively selected to lead the 23 campus California State University Transportation Research and Workforce Development portfolio. And that work is funded by Senate Bill 1, which is the Road Repair and Recovery Act of 2017. So it is no secret that the global pandemic has greatly impacted transportation in multiple ways. In addition to the human toll, idle airlines and public transit agencies have had to cut service, furlough workers, and had to quickly adapt to different health and safety changes, while we've all experienced dramatic changes in how we move and, importantly, access goods and services. In some cases, the pandemic is changing the trajectory and the future of our industry, and in other cases, it's not. So let's start with that in mind. Advancements in technology, first off, combined with demographic shifts, mobility innovation, and social trends are and will continue to shape the future of the transportation sector. On the technology side, cloud computing, location-based services, and mobile technologies are contributing to the growth of on-demand mobility. As many of you know, mobility on demand, or MOD, is a concept based on the principle that transportation is actually a commodity, where modes have distinguishable economic values. It enables customers to access not only how they're going to get places, but the goods and services that they need all on demand. The growth of this and other transportation innovations is creating vast amounts of transportation data. That data can create new opportunities for decision-making by the public sector. And consumers, and I think that everybody on this call will agree, are increasingly expecting to have real-time, dynamic, and actionable information before, during, and after a trip or a delivery request. Again, that's where the cloud computing and the big data come in. You combine that with the consumer desire for real-time decision-making, and you see this increase in mobility on demand and other app-based services because it allows comparison. It allows the consumer, whether it's of a product or a service, to make decisions based on the best actionable intelligence. Now more than ever, we're making decisions about how we will get our goods and service. Will it be curbside pickup? Will it be delivered? Will we access it in a different way? How many modes will we take if we travel? What modes will they be, and how much are we willing to pay? These are all questions that will impact the future of transportation and certainly our own mobility. Today's travelers are actually part of what we call an experience economy. They expect personalization, and for apps, mobility service providers, and even public transit agencies to know their preferences and travel behavior. And honestly, they're probably likely to be more repeat riders if an operator provides targeted, personalized information. We know that choice travelers don't necessarily need to take public transit or high occupancy modes, but we also know that those modes provide great value. So now, perhaps more than ever, public transit agencies and transportation professionals have to make travelers want to take these modes. This means that operators cannot afford to provide bad experiences because COVID-19 in some cases has made competition with private vehicles tougher. Survival is going to depend on that experience. People want good lighting, access to Wi-Fi, security, classic amenities, and cleanliness is going to be critical to convincing travelers that transit remains safe. In fact, with shelter-in-place orders, mobility around the country plummeted, with public transit agencies specifically suffering fare losses between 70 and 90% in the spring. Today's statistics at present show that we're still down 65% nationwide. And in some of our more dense urban areas, for example, the San Francisco Bay Area where I reside, the ridership is down about 88%. Similarly, we saw a steep decline in vehicle miles traveled in personally owned automobiles, which of course has an impact on the gas tax, which is used, at least here in California, for a fix-it-first approach to our infrastructure. But despite these decreased ridership numbers in transit, I do want to say that public transit systems continue to be indispensable to a large segment of our population. And that's our essential services workers. Transporting them to jobs, transit also acts as a major economic engine and an opportunity for equity. But riders fear, and in some cases still fear, that it could be a spreader of COVID. What we know was that some initial studies suggested that in the spring, but it has been revealed that these were flawed studies. And recent international studies from Austria, Japan, France, they show that no COVID clusters defined as 3 or more cases originating from one shared experience are resulting from public transit. So people need to consider all of these things as our economy starts to reopen, as we start to engage with life in a way similar to how we did last year at this time. So to close out the discussion about transit, high visibility cleaning with very strong health messaging campaigns, coupled with mask wearing, can help reassure passengers that they can return to a safe system. But, and as always, more research is needed. And I think that most people on this phone would agree with that statement. As we've also seen of late, there's a radical and fast adoption of telecommuting, e-commerce, and the digital transformation of our economy. A number of companies, in fact, have announced that large percentages of their workforce will be allowed to telecommute in perpetuity. These include, here in our nation, Twitter, Facebook, Shopify. But what we also saw in Japan is that their largest employer has reduced their office footprint by 50% because what they saw was not this huge disruption in how efficient people were being, but rather working from home works well for some people. Now, I myself would prefer a hybrid approach because I enjoy being outside of my home and interacting with others. But some people really enjoy only having that commute from one room to another. So we may be looking at some hybrid approach as we go back into pre-COVID operations. While the growth of telework, households may choose to reside farther from urban centers or even cities for that matter, particularly if they can achieve cost savings from more affordable housing. This decision-making could be influenced by other high quality of life factors, such as schools, parks, lower crime rates, environmental quality, and some of locations may be more attractive than others. We do know that in an effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission here in the San Francisco Bay Area has unveiled what some consider a controversial plan. It would require that 60% of employees must telework for all employers in this region if they have 25 or more workers on the payroll. Now, the concern with this approach, of course, is we don't yet have data on the impacts of telework. We really want more data on worker productivity. Travel behavior at present is limited. So for example, telework could induce demand for non-commute trips, such as traveling to satellite work locations, maybe a coffee shop, or an increase in midday trips. What we do know from a recent study by Celligent is that 36% of responders in North America and Europe now shop online weekly. This is obviously a new trend and one we didn't really see 8 months ago. In fact, e-commerce sales have increased 60% from the second quarter of 2019 to the second quarter of 2020. The strongest categories, this was surprising to me as I prepared for this speech, are clothing, sporting goods, and motor vehicles. Now the clothing part, unless it was loungewear, is the surprising part to me. But the sporting goods, especially for sports that can be played in a physically distanced way, and personal vehicles, that's not so surprising. So for years, we've seen a number of demographic trends that will help shape the future of transportation. The US population, number one, it's expected to grow by approximately 70 million people in the next 25 years. Very importantly in that statistic is the fact by 2045, 77% of people will be the increase of people 65 and older will be 77%. That has enormous implications for access and mobility, especially for our older population and persons with disabilities. Finally, people are working longer. Millennials are entering the workforce and they are elevating, but they are delaying up until recently larger life decisions, such as getting married, having children, and buying homes. But no discussion of the future of transportation would be complete if we didn't also link it to housing. Contrary to popular belief, even during this trying time that we've experienced, the US population is still suburbanizing. A study found, in fact, that 45% of the US population resides in suburbs of large metropolitan areas. That's 45%. And 75% of US households reside in single family or mobile homes. Oklahoma is no stranger to this trend. Just compare all the revitalization in Bricktown to new homes on the suburban fringe. At 621 square miles, Oklahoma City's land area is nearly 25% larger than Los Angeles. This was news to me, probably not news to most of you, but it was exciting to find that out to help frame today's discussion. So in other words, even as planners and policymakers across the country talk about an urban renaissance, many cities are still suburbanizing. And with the growth of telework, this trend may be gaining traction. So at present, about 42% of the US labor force is working from home. If this trend becomes longer term, it could have profound implications for many cities and states across the South, Plains, and Midwest. In fact, across the country, contracts for condos are declining in urban centers, while contracts for single-family homes in suburban areas are increasing. Now, I started my comments by saying, please forgive any sounds, and I said that somewhat facetiously, but in fact, I do live in a condo, and I can tell you the walls are getting quite tight. So having some space in a backyard with an 8-year-old child and a small dog would be most welcome. So we're all dealing, despite where we live, with our own challenges. In fact, the shifts that I just mentioned between city living and living in a more suburban area, we're seeing this happen in Boston, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco. Because for many, jobs and commute distances, it's kept many households reluctantly tethered to the higher cost of housing. So what does this mean for Oklahoma? Let's take a hypothetical scenario of a tech worker that earns a 6-figure salary, pays more than 1/3 of that income on housing, but has recently been told that they can telework indefinitely. San Francisco, they're paying about $1,000 square foot to buy a house or condo. In Oklahoma, they could be paying $100 in Tulsa or closer to $120 in Oklahoma City per square foot. This dynamic has the potential to contribute to a national immigration that we haven't seen in 50 years, when Americans relocated to the Sun Belt and to the Rust Belt. For Oklahoma, this potentially has huge implications. It could be more growth, new residents, and increased demand for infrastructure, obviously, including transportation, and potential gentrification. If this migration occurs, nationwide, cities will need to decide how they want to grow. It needs to be intentional. It is a decision. What policies may be needed to prevent displacement and to maintain that affordable cost of living. But what this also means is that the growth of telework can create demands for other transportation infrastructure, such as passenger rail and airports. It's not hard to imagine a scenario where these teleworkers have to fly to San Francisco, Chicago, maybe even New York once or twice a month for meetings. And to my moderator, I am actually timing myself also, so I'm good. So diving back in here, early economic and housing data seems to reinforce this hypothesis. On the housing side, the National Association of Realtors says homeownership is getting more affordable, large part due to historically low interest rates, and existing home sales are up, and the rating of telework-ready counties using factors like internet connectivity, percent of workers in office jobs, affordability, and population growth all point toward the suburban and exurban growth. So unlike prior economic downturns, this one's different. For those that are unemployed, the inability to travel and spend money on dining and entertainment, coupled with low costs, has resulted in a shift in consumer spending. We're purchasing more durable goods, and that includes personal vehicles. We're seeing, it could be because people are saving money while avoiding public transportation. It could be because they're not going out and are saving money on entertainment. There's a whole host of factors that can contribute. But all of these trends contribute to a shift in the conversation. So what do I mean about that? How is the transportation conversation shifting? 10 years ago, people used to say, how do I drive from point A to point B? 5 years ago, with the growing popularity of mobility services such as Uber and Lyft and micromobility, the conversation began to change to, how do I get from point A to point B? And now we're seeing another fundamental shift with people asking, how do I get things I need from point A to point B? This current conversation is not one I ever would have predicted 10 years ago. So this is actually, I have goosebumps. This is quite exciting for transportation in the future. So there really is a notable shift. And these changes allow us to reimagine how we interact and use vehicles and how we get goods and services. The industry often talked about the convergence of on-demand shared vehicles, automation, and electric drive technology to make a car more cost-effective. Now the conversation has shifted to how e-commerce, automation, and electric drive technology will make cars more cost-effective for on-demand goods delivery. Whether this trend continues is up for debate, but the increasing number of modal options and service providers has the potential to create what we call a network effect, where one service, mobility, or delivery in close proximity to others adds value and creates a transportation multiplier. We are seeing this play out in different ways. On the mobility side, there's a lot of public sector excitement around mobility management and mobility as a service, which is an integrated mobility concept in which travelers can access their transportation modes over a single digital interface. It primarily focuses on passenger mobility, allowing travelers to seamlessly plan, book, and pay for travel on a pay-as-you-go or subscription basis. This allows public transit agencies to shift from providing just mobility services to becoming more of a coordinator or a facilitator of transportation services. So as public agencies face fiscal constraints, there could be more interest in pursuing this type of service model. So at the federal level, the Federal Transit Administration is supporting a number of pilots and demonstrations. FTA's got an integrated mobility innovation program which funds projects that demonstrate effective practices, partnerships, and technologies that enhance public transportation, effectiveness, efficiency, quality, safety, and with an improvement on traveler experience. There's also another 15 million for demonstration projects focused on automated transit research and payment integration, with the goal of exploring new business approaches and technology solutions and enabling communities to adapt innovative solutions that work for their constituency. And finally, facilitating the widespread deployment of proven mobility solutions, all in an effort to expand personal mobility for those who aren't choice riders, or for those individuals who may not be able to operate their own vehicle due to a number of other issues or concerns. As part of this effort, the Grand Gateway Economic Development Association will receive funding to introduce an integrated on-demand shared ride service in 21 rural communities in eastern and central Oklahoma. The project is going to connect 4 regional rural public transit partners with predictive scheduling, and routing technology that helps riders tailor trips to meet their needs. You all probably know about that, but that was something else I found pretty exciting to read about. So advancements in automation, electrification, and alternative fuels are likely to have profound impacts on the entire transportation industry. Automation and electrification have a variety of potential applications, could include privately owned vehicles, shared automated vehicles, automated transit, delivery vehicles, and even aerial mobility, as we've been reading about of late. But with respect of automated and electric vehicles, 2 driving questions remain. That was an intentional pun. I know I can't see anybody, but I hope somebody out there laughed at my pun. Those questions are, will EVs and AVs be personally owned or shared? Where will they be deployed? Will it be automated taxis, public transit, etc.? We're not really sure, and these aren't easy questions to answer. But emerging technologies, we must also be vigilant, always. We need them to guide sustainable and equitable outcomes. And in particular, emerging transportation technologies present 4 key risks that I believe we must prepare for and mitigate. First is labor. The impact of automation on public transit, goods delivery, and other sectors, it's uncertain. So it could result in job losses among drivers. We need to be aware of that. Second is equity. The impacts of vehicle automation on equity and access are also uncertain. It could reduce transportation costs for low-income households and create new opportunities for healthcare and job access. However, if it lacks services for people with disabilities or requires a credit card or smartphone, some travelers may not be able to access those mobility services. With respect to aerial mobility, emergency services are premium products, and these services are unlikely to be affordable for a mass market initially. Third, travel behavior, congestion, and the environmental impact. The impact of innovations are highly uncertain. For example, thank you for that comment, somebody that just popped that into the chat feature. For example, vehicle automation could result in more or less congestion depending on how vehicles are used, such as traveling without passengers, also known as deadheading, single passenger use, or pooled use. You can see by imagining all 3 of those scenarios that they would have different impacts. So policies such as road pricing may be needed to prioritize pooled services or deprioritize empty vehicles. And finally, data privacy. We must have a greater emphasis on protecting consumer privacy as our transportation network becomes more digitally connected. I see I'm down to like my last 2 minutes here, so I'm gonna skip ahead. I was so excited, I prepared too many remarks here. But I do want to talk about the new opportunities for workforce and economic development in your area. The Choctaw Nation is a great example of the types of opportunities that transportation can create. As many of you are aware, the Choctaw Nation is currently developing a 44,000 plus acre Advanced Aviation Technology Test Center it's going to be a big facility located on tribal lands in the southeastern part of the state. Importantly, they were the only tribal government selected as a lead participant on the FAA Unmanned Aerial System Integration Pilot Program, and the first tribal government to be recognized by FAA as a public aircraft operator. In the future, we'll see more with artificial intelligence and the profound impacts that it will have on transportation, has the potential to track health, crime, and safety data in real time. We also know that when paired with vehicle automation, it has the potential to add increased connectivity between travelers and their vehicles. And we also know that it can help with traffic management and pedestrian safety by predicting the path of pedestrians and cyclists and adjusting traffic signals accordingly. Lots of other innovations, 3D printing, lots of exciting stuff. But our future of transportation does depend on a highly skilled workforce. So in closing, getting product to market, people to jobs, to entertainment opportunities, and to healthcare is integral to the well-being of absolutely any community. But to ensure the efficient mobility of people and products, we absolutely must prepare a new cohort of transportation professionals who are ready to lead a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable transportation industry. And we look forward to Dr. Zalman and his fine team leading the way in this regard. I thank you so much for your time, and I apologize I went 1 minute over.
We appreciate that very much, Dr. Philbrick. Wait, I do have a number of questions. I'll pose those for Dr. Philbrick and Dr. Regal, and I think Ms. Stevens will have a few questions as well. But if you would, Dr. Philbrick, from your role with CUTSI, how can local and tribal transportation needs keep up with the pace of change in our industry? You're on mute still, Dr. Philbrick.
You would think after so many months, I'd have the hang of that one.
We're all guilty.
We're all guilty. You know, that's a terrific question. And for those of you who are involved in the University Transportation Centers program, there's been a real emphasis on including tribal colleges within our consortiums. For example, Navajo Tech is one of the partners of the Minetta Transportation Institute. That is a very rural, it's located in a very rural community, surrounded by 18,000 square miles of unpaved roads with an unemployment rate topping 52%. We are bringing meaningful partnership and about $300,000 a year to them to help develop workforce development programs. We're partnering with on a new grant opportunity with FTA to look at how electric bikes can be deployed in rural areas. We're making sure they're included in our decision making, and we are learning from them to help define the way forward. So I think making meaningful partnerships and opportunities for collaboration are absolutely critical, but I cannot underscore enough the emphasis on the word meaningful. It can't be you're a partner in name and here's $25,000, good luck. It needs to be integrated. And I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'll pose this next question to the both of you. So how do you see transportation workforce needs developing in the future with regards to these changing times? Dr. Philbrick?
Sure. Well, what we knew prior to current events is that the transportation industry as a whole, from the C-suite all the way down to the mechanic and everything in between, needed to fill about 460,000 jobs on an annual basis. That was due to a number of factors: an aging workforce, increased demand on a system because of a burgeoning population, and because of the advent of new technology. Right now, we know that those statistics can't really be said with the same level of confidence. I don't think anybody has the answer on what this disruption will be on the workforce, but what we do know is transportation will keep going every single mode, and it's not just the bus driver or the airline pilot, it's the communications professor, the supply chain manager. It's everybody that's helping with mobility, and there will always be a need for that. So we cannot let up our focus and intensity on training the next generation of our transportation professionals.
Great, thank you. Dr. Regal, additional comments, please?
Yes, certainly there really is an emphasis on STEM education. And I always say, when anyone ever asks me, you know, how did you get into transportation? I have a computer science degree to begin with. You know, what kind of degree do I need? Transportation is multidisciplinary, and it can use all types of job skill, from the economist, you know, to the computer scientist, to the accountant. So I always say, just, you know, work on something, study something, learn something that you love to do, because there's always going to be a place for you in transportation. And so, you know, that's what I would say about, you know, what's needed and what's going on. We'll need all kinds of skills.
Absolutely.
Big exclamation point on that, Dr. Regal. I think you said that so well. I'm a psychologist. I mean, I never set out to be in transportation. And I think that the lesson for our younger generations are say yes. Say yes to opportunity, because you never know when you're going to find your passion and your calling.
Absolutely. Those are great comments. Appreciate that. Dr. Regal, with the pandemic and changing technologies, is FHWA looking at their view of what transportation, workforce, and partner relationships may look like in the future?
During the time of the public health crisis, you know, we're continuing our research. We may have had to have more virtual meetings versus, you know, being in our innovation lab, coming up with, you know, various different ideas. So I would say the administrative portion of administering research programs, we've had to come up with, you know, very creative and dynamic ways, but we're still continuing, you know, our research. And you know, funding, grants are still going out. But what the public health crisis has, you know, forced us to be is creative and in some cases more efficient. The one project that I mentioned earlier, the foil laboratory, we generally had people come to the laboratory to witness those tests, especially of our partners. You know, National Park Service, we also do work with the Department of State. So we are able to use now the technology that we're forced to use and live web stream those tests. So, and shortly after, the test only lasts about, you know, 10 seconds. But right after that test, we're able to have people from multidisciplines and partnerships talk about what they just saw really in real time. And so, you know, those are the things that we're looking at, how to really continue the research, advance the research, and communicate and get the word out about what we're doing, what's going on.
So, a question in regards to the discussion of new technologies on their effect on transportation is very good. But what effect drones will have on transportation? What technology do you think it will have the most effect?
Dr. Regal?
So drones, yeah, you know, my sister agency, the Federal Aviation Administration, certainly are looking at drones. And there's been cases where we've looked at drones for pipeline inspections. There's multiple uses for drones in the transportation industry. We're using drones to inspect underneath bridges, looking at those kind of capabilities. So there's a place for drones for this technology, and there's no absence of ideas on how to use it. And we just need to ensure that how we're using it is safe and it does give us the results and the data and information that we need.
Thank you for that, Dr. Regal.
And just to add one
yes,
thing.
Dr. Philbrick, thank you.
One thing to that, because the remote bridge inspection is critically important. They're also being looked at for the delivery of goods. And importantly, they are being used for trespasser and suicide prevention on the rails so that they can see what's happening and provide alert to either rail workers, first responders, or to the operator of the train itself, that there is somebody or something on the tracks. So lots of uses out there, but lots of impact and how to properly roll this new technology out still needed.
Great, thank you very much. So any research is FHWA doing on SMAT structures? What technologies are being researched?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so I hope it's not a typo, but any research that FHWA is doing on SMAT structures?
I'm going to have to throw a lifeline there to if any of my FHWA colleagues are on the line. From the
I'm
division
sorry,
office.
it's just smart structures.
Yeah, smart structures. Yeah. So our Office of Infrastructure R&D, I would have to say yes, but I don't have any details on any particular project. And again, if a colleague in the Highways Division office out in Oklahoma might have more information than I, just might provide some answer in the Q&A section.
I think this is besides from the division. I guess I think one of the things that we have talked about in our STIC meetings, which is the State Transportation Innovation Council, is the future of smart bridges. I guess what we can do is we can provide a little bit more details and share it with the participants just to I don't have much details, but we'll be able to provide all the information, in some sort of a reason.
Thank you. Mr. Siddiqui, your volume is very low, so I hope everyone was able to hear that.
And whoever asked that question, we're happy to follow up as well.
Yeah, Basharat, you need to increase your volume.
So we'll move on to the next question. As we are quickly moving into autonomous land vehicles, what concerns do each of you have that as well as flying autonomous vehicles?
Oh, I have a huge concern, and it's cyber risk. My palms almost started sweating when I got asked that question. That would be if I picture. Let me preface my comment with I fully support automation. But when I picture myself in a fully automated vehicle, I get concerned about somebody hacking that system, a bad player, if you will, and doing a cyber attack that could ultimately physically hurt me and my family. That's my big fear as a mother and as a person. It's also my big fear as a transportation professional.
Yeah, we're learning a lot about automated vehicles. Our focus is on the safety of that. Cybersecurity is a part of that safety program as well. That's why we have the trucks here. We have the cars here. We're taking trucks in the cars, partnering with the Department of Homeland Security on their race tracks. And so we're looking at those edge cases. Not only how does the automation perform, but how does the automation perform in real settings? We do have our truck platooning demonstration program that was just awarded, early demonstration program that was just awarded in July. And there are going to be truck platoons operating on roads. It looks like the I-10 corridor, maybe coming right through Oklahoma. So that is our focus. The developers, the innovators building the automated driving systems, are doing a great job. We need to ensure that once they're deployed on the roadways, that they will operate safely.
Great, thank you for those comments. I think this will probably be our last question, but in terms of technology to connect vehicles, would you like to comment whether DSRC or 5G will be the winner?
I would like to say that that's still to be played out. You know, the FCC has had requests for comments out there, and you know, we're working through it.
All right, Teresa, I don't know if you may have had any additional questions. We've got 4 minutes here. Teresa, did you happen to have some additionals that were submitted to you?
I do. Unfortunately, all of the panelists are not able to use the QA feature.
Right.
So I received some through that opportunity. And one is for Dr. Regal, and this is regarding AI and machine learning. Since they are evolving so rapidly, what is FHWA doing to plan or take benefit from the rapidly developing technology of AI and machine learning?
Yeah, we have several initiatives involving artificial intelligence, and we are working across the department also with our sister agencies on various different programs. So that is something that we're also learning about, but it is a focus area of how we can use that in many of the different applications, not only just federal highways.
So a follow-up is, what arrangements is Turner Fairbank requiring for collaboration, use of the facility for research, and what are FHWA's priorities for transportation infrastructure research?
So we're a very collaborative group here. As I mentioned earlier, that we do host postdocs, student interns. The Federal Highways has the Eisenhower Fellowship Program. So there are various different opportunities where, you know, we can host and have, you know, students and researchers complete, you know, their dissertations, you know, any type of research that they're involved in. And
are those programs active right now?
Yes, very much.
Very good.
Because of the public health crisis, we are limited in pretty much the number of staff at the facility at any one time. And so there's been some just scheduling challenges, but the research hasn't stopped. And, you know, of course, we're allowing work to be done teleworking as well. So, but we're also finding ways through, you know, the Zoom platforms, MS Team platforms that are also collaborative platforms too, not just, you know, conference video conferencing. So there are new tools out there that are, you know, helping us facilitate that collaboration and what needs to get done. In terms of infrastructure work, yeah, you know, we have a lot going on in infrastructure. So we, you know, of course, our Office of Infrastructure R&D, we're always in conversation with the Office of Infrastructure and headquarters, being led by Hari Kala. And UHPC that I mentioned earlier, that is a big program that we're looking at, and how we can best, you know, use our expertise and our knowledge with that to help the states in the various different, you know, challenge areas that they have.
So speaking of UHPC, one of the panelists is asking what research is currently being pursued to examine the long-term performance of UHPC. Currently, we know that it's great for short-term repair jobs, but what is the long-term expectation?
Yeah, you know, so one of it is partnering. You know, there's a latest partnership with Delaware, but also in our lab, I showed a photo of putting particular loads on UHPC application. So that's a part of, you know, looking at the longevity, the long-term, you know, material UHPC.
Great.
I think it's going to be really
for all
helpful
those
as
questions
our.
and answers. I think we'll need to move on to our next segment. On behalf of ODOT, the SPTC, and everyone else, we greatly appreciate you, Dr. Philbrick and Dr. Regal, on, you know, the presentations you provided and questions and answers. Harper, thank you very much for your time today.